Hello and welcome to our next episode of our review for the season 5 of 100. We just got done watching The Red Queen. Thought it was a pretty good episode compared to the season premiere, which started off kind of slow and then built up into a pretty interesting episode. This one I thought was really strong all the way through, right from the very beginning all the way up until the end. I was really interested in what was happening and all the action and all the new character developments and all the little clues that they were planting throughout the episode. Right from the very beginning, there was some interesting stuff. I thought it was cool how they started off with Miller training with Octavia and with a sword, and then they kind of ended the episode with him in a very different place. He was holding, I think, some kind of big old club, and that looks just like that looks great. I can't wait to see how they've changed that character in that 6 year time jump that they took in between the seasons. So although most of this episode focused on, I think, like a very short amount of time, they did kind of show where some of the characters end up. They showed Miller's got a different getup, pretty cool weapon. I think Nyla's like trained to be a pretty loyal and capable bodyguard or something along those lines to Octavia in the future, in her kind of like blood arena. What did they call it? Blood arena?
Well,
or
I'm
did they
pretty
call
sure
her?
I think they called her Blood Reina because like that makes sense, right?
Right. It's kind of like one Haida,
It's
but
like the Red Queen.
she's Red Queen. So I get, yeah, that must be it. Blood Reina must be Red Queen. So yeah, that was really cool. I like that name because it kind of is talking about how her blood isn't red, how she's not a Nightblood, but as we saw throughout the episode, she was just covering herself in other people's blood. So it had a dual meaning to it, and it was talking about how she was a very ruthless leader. At least she became a very ruthless leader. She didn't start off that way. In fact, I think pretty much right after the training thing, she had a trial or something along that line for some grounder who stole blankets from another grounder tribe. And what was cool is they actually called back to that later on in the episode, and instead of being merciful and taking what I think are kind of like half measures, she decided just to throw him in with everybody and say, you all gotta fight in this arena for your right to live, because, well, some people are gonna die, and this seems like an interesting way to do it, maybe a fair way to do it. And she got that lesson from Jaha. I thought that was it was a really interesting way for her to interact with that character, because she's always hated him for killing her mother, for breaking the law, and now she's got to do that. Now she's got to be that person for other people, and in a lot of ways she's got to be worse than Jaha ever had to be, because Jaha was already in a pretty controlled environment without like too many variables. She's in a very different environment than the Ark, and she's got to be very ruthless to the different factions, because they don't like each other. They're pretty nasty to one another. When the Sky Crew people could, they locked out the Grounders and tried to starve them to death, and then when the Grounders had the opportunity, they just started killing the people that were out there in the halls because they were angry. I thought they were going to eat them. I was pretty convinced of it, because they kind of hinted at that. I like that line about
They did, but they didn't say it would happen that quickly.
It's true. I kind of thought like maybe Grounders had that in their society, that eating people's okay, but no, that was their villain in season 1. What were their enemy in season 1? What do they call her? Reapers?
Yes.
Reavers? Some Reapers, I think it was. Reavers, I think, is something else. I think that's.
I'm pretty sure it's Reapers.
Was it Firefly?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Firefly. Not this one. That's a different show. But yeah, no. I did think that it was interesting how Octavia started off with like half rations instead of killing people, because it reminded me of half measures. Instead of really taking the steps she needed to, she kind of delayed the inevitable and made it worse in the end. And that's kind of like why she had to become the Red Queen, why she had to become so ruthless, because she wasn't willing to follow the rules in the beginning. And that definitely hurt her in the long run, hurt their society in the long run. If they just kind of like said, all right, this is the population control that we need, they'd have a lot more farmers, a lot more Sky Crew people probably with them 6 years down the line. It probably would be a less of a grounder focused society, but no, they kind of let people go their different ways and not be one crew. Um, I really liked all the scenes with Ethan. I think that character is going to be interesting because he's going to be he's very close to Maddie in age, right? Maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
And he's going to be like, it looks like a pretty savage character who had a pretty tame beginning in the show. Started off as just like an innocent little child. His dad was taken from him, and in this episode he was very like a very sweet influence on Jaha. It made Jaha a better person. Kind of helped him see why he shouldn't have killed all the grounders in the last season. Like he says to Kane that he's happy that he talked him down from it, and
I wasn't sure if that was sarcastic or not.
I think it was.
You
Was
think
not sarcastic. I think it was genuine. I think that he was actually happy that he talked him down because, from what I got from that, he seemed to be like. And maybe I'm taking it wrong. Maybe I need to go rewatch that scene and see if it seemed like sarcasm. But you thought it was?
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, he did kind of seem to want Octavia to be more ruthless and willing to kill those um, who aren't going to fall in line. And I don't know. In some levels, he did want her to make sure the innocents were spared. So I think he was kind of trying to be as positive of an influence as possible, but maybe through like a ruthless course. It may be like a weird conflicting interest type thing where he wants to be caring, he wants to take care of his people, but at the same time you gotta kind of take care of the guilty. And in this situation, it's hard to do that in a fair way. But yeah, one of the other things I really liked in this episode was when they talked about the blight. I thought that really was an interesting line. It wasn't much, but it gave a lot of backstory, a little bit of lore to the Arcadians and what they went through. I think it was Abby. She was talking to somebody about how
whoever that woman was.
Oh, the lady,
The farm lady.
farm lady who lost family. That was who she was talking to. She's saying how like that they had some kind of blight and that they started floating the dead because basically people who saw their friends die of starvation might actually start to cannibalize the dead, and that's something that the Arcadians just weren't going to put up with at all. Like those who were left apparently outlawed that, so I guess they killed all the cannibals. They just like, all right, we can't just let these people starve. We got to go get rid of these cannibals because that's not okay. That's unacceptable. And I'm looking forward to more things like that. I'm sure they won't do too much, but like every season, I'd like a little bit more history. I liked like in season 1, I think it was in season 1 when they talked about Unity Day. And they had all those kids walking around with the flags and singing the song and talking about how there was this one tribe a long time ago or one station that rebelled and they had to blow them out of the sky. And they later came back to that. They filled in a little bit more of that story. They may do the same with the blight. They may not. Either way, I'm happy that they included that in this episode. Let's see. What else did I have in this? Oh yeah, Octavia was taking more half measures when she wanted to spare the grounders who were trying to kill Sky Crew. I thought that was interesting because she hadn't quite taken the leap she needed to, and I think Jaha helped her get to that point. And yeah, that was a cool way for them to kind of end his character. Because he'd been more of like a ruthless leader, and he definitely took a step back. I think like he was a changed person, to be honest. Looking at my notes here, they definitely were focusing on him being more of an engineer and more of an advisor to Octavia, and I think the only way he was able to do that was through the events of last season. They kind of maybe humbled him and helped him take a step back and see that, you know, he's not always right. Maybe sometimes there is a way to spare people, and I guess Octavia's way looking to the past using gladiators, a gladiators type arena, which is inspired by the book that Nyla gave her. I thought that is kind of in a way merciful because they are sparing some of the people that are guilty. Not all of them are going to die. There will be some that get away, and
Mm-hmm.
on one level it's not, because it forces the society to be a very like different society, and it's going to be one of those blood and circuses type thing, or bread and circus type things, where people just go there for entertainment instead of for justice. So there may be like people volunteering to do this or committing crime so that they can get involved in this.
I mean,
And
that's what it seemed like with the first winner at the end there.
he's pretty stoked, right?
Seemed very excited, and so did the audience there. Very excited to see that.
Who knows? Maybe they'll do more stuff like that in future episodes and future seasons. I'd be happy with it. Because so far it's looking really, really interesting, and I'm not entirely convinced that they're gonna have too small of a faction. They may actually be able to get out into the world and survive in pretty harsh environments because of the type of society that Octavia is going to build. Is going to be a very, very difficult society to overcome, because it's going to be total war. It's going to be just like the Roman Empire, which I don't think there are going to be very many powers like that to rival them. They're going to be the only ones that use that style, which in ancient times was an effective way to do things, and nowadays you couldn't really get away with that. Other people would say, stop, that's inhumane.
Yeah.
But in their world, there's nobody else around them to say, total war is bad, you can't do that. You can't just burn everything and say, this now belongs to us. But she could. There's not too much in here that I have. Yeah, like I said, I thought it was a really, really, really cool episode. You said something about Octavia accepting that she's Sky Crew when Thelonious said, or when Kane and Abby
May
said.
we meet again when Thelonious was dying.
So, what do you think that means? Like, because she's obviously, she identifies more with Sky Crew, I think, after that scene, but she still becomes the Red Queen in charge of the arena.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because you didn't see much from the 6 years from now, right? At this point, it's anyone's guess. But I think she might show a little bit of favoritism to Sky Crew, like a tiny little bit. Like, maybe less and less every year. But I think that...
Well, it was almost like recognizing it, her identity as like Sky Crew, but also kind of like letting it go. Like now, like one crew's gonna take over as like everybody's thing, right? So like acknowledging it and like
maybe embracing the lessons she learned from that experience. Like, not everything was good, but not everything was bad. She was able to get like some lessons from the way Thelonious ruled, and she's not going to do things the exact same way. So yeah, maybe it's her way of recognizing that. I like that. It sounds like a good way to take that line. But yeah, that blood arena was really cool. I like that they put the blanket stealers in there with the revolters, and they all got to fight to the death. I guess any crime now is punishable by death, or whatever you call it when they have to fight in the arena. But yeah, I think that's all that we have to say on this episode. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to check out the description below and to leave a like or subscribe if you haven't already. Trying to do a little bit more on the side, so yeah, see you around.